Life isn't about finding yourself. Life is about creating yourself. But let me tell you something. Creating yourself, becoming the person you want to be, achieving your dreams. It's not going to be easy. It's going to be hard. It's going to be painful. And that's exactly why you need to do it. You see, most people in this world looking for the easy way out. They're looking for shortcuts, for magic pills, for get-rich-quick schemes. They want success without sacrifice, achievement without effort, and results without responsibility. But I'm here to tell you, that's not how it works. Not in this life, not in this world. If you want to be successful, if you want to be extraordinary, if you want to leave your mark on this world, you're going to have to force yourself to suffer. Now, I know what you're thinking. Suffer? Why would I want to suffer? I thought this was supposed to be motivational. Well, let me explain. When I say suffer, I don't mean you should go out and intentionally hurt yourself. I'm not talking about physical pain or self-harm. What I'm talking about is the kind of suffering that comes from pushing yourself beyond your comfort zone. The kind of suffering that comes from doing the things you don't want to do, but know you should do. It's the suffering of waking up at 5 a.m. when your body is begging for more sleep. It's the suffering of hitting the gym when every fiber of your being wants to stay on the couch. It's the suffering of saying no to that piece of cake when your taste buds are screaming yes. It's the suffering of sitting down to work on your business when your friends are out having fun. And this kind of suffering is what separates the successful from the unsuccessful, the extraordinary from the ordinary, the achievers from the dreamers. You see, success is not about avoiding pain. It's about embracing it. It's about understanding that growth and comfort cannot coexist. It's about realizing that every time you choose the easy option, you're robbing yourself of an opportunity to grow. Let me give you an example. Back in my day, I knew a young man who wanted to start his own business. He had a great idea, he had the skills, but there was one problem. He was afraid of failure. He was comfortable in his 9-to-5 job, and the thought of stepping out into the unknown terrified him. For months, he talked about his business idea. He made plans, he dreamed big dreams, but he never took action. Why? Because taking action meant facing his fears. It meant risking failure. It meant suffering through uncertainty and doubt. One day I sat him down, told him, son, you've got to force yourself to suffer. You've got to be willing to fail. You've got to be willing to look foolish. You've got to be willing to struggle. Because if you're not willing to do these things, you'll never achieve your dreams. It took some time, but eventually, he took the leap. He quit his job and started his business. And let me tell you, it wasn't easy. There were days when he questioned his decision. There were nights when he couldn't sleep because of worry. There were moments when he thought about giving up. But he persevered. He forced himself to suffer through the hard times. He pushed through the doubt, the fear, and the uncertainty. And you know what? After a few years of struggle, his business took off. Today, he's more successful than he ever imagined he could be. Now, I'm not telling you this story to make you think that success is guaranteed if you're willing to suffer. It's not. But what I am telling you is that if you're not willing to suffer, failure is guaranteed. You see, suffering, the right kind of suffering, is the price of admission for success. It's the toll you have to pay on the road to achievement. It's the fire that forges your character and shapes your destiny. Think about it. Every great achievement in history came at the cost of great suffering. The Wright brothers didn't invent the airplane by sitting on their couch. They suffered through countless failures, crashes, and setbacks. Thomas Edison didn't invent the light bulb on his first try. He suffered through thousands of failed attempts before he succeeded. And it's not just in the world of invention and business. Think about great athletes. Do you think they became great by taking it easy? No. They forced themselves to suffer through grueling training sessions, strict diets, and painful defeats. Think about great artists. Do you think they created masterpieces by waiting for inspiration to strike? No. They forced themselves to suffer through creative blocks, criticism, and self-doubt. The truth is, anything worth achieving in this life requires suffering. And the sooner you accept this truth, the sooner you can start on your path to success. Now, I know what some of you might be thinking, but Jim, I don't want to suffer. Well, let me tell you something. True happiness doesn't come from avoiding suffering. It comes from overcoming it. It comes from looking back at the challenges you've faced, the obstacles you've overcome, and knowing that you have the strength and courage to push through. There's a satisfaction, a deep sense of fulfillment that comes from knowing you've done something difficult. It's a feeling that can't be matched by any easy victory or quick fix. But here's the catch. You've got to choose your suffering. You've got to be intentional about it. You've got to force yourself into it. You see, life is going to make you suffer one way or another. That's just the nature of existence. But you have a choice. You can either suffer the pain of discipline or suffer the pain of regret. You can suffer through the challenges of pursuing your dreams, or you can suffer through the emptiness of a life unlived. One type of suffering leads to growth, achievement, and fulfillment. The other leads to stagnation, mediocrity, and disappointment. The choice is yours. So how do you force yourself to suffer in a way that leads to success? Let me give you a few strategies. First, set big, audacious goals for yourself. Goals that scare you. Goals that make you think, I don't know if I can do that. Because here's the thing, if your goals don't scare you, they're not big enough. If you can easily see the path to achieving your goals, you're not dreaming big enough. Big goals force you to grow. They force you to become more than you are. They force you to suffer through the process of becoming the person capable of achieving those goals. Second, develop daily disciplines. Force yourself to do the things you know you should do, even when you don't feel like doing them. Wake up early. Exercise regularly. Read books that challenge your thinking. Work on your skills every single day. These daily disciplines might seem small, but they add up over time. They're like compound interest for your life. And let me tell you, they're not always easy. There will be days when you don't want to get out of bed. There will be days when you'd rather watch TV than read a book. There will be days when you'd rather eat junk food than stick to your diet. But these are the moments that define you. These are the moments when you have to force yourself to suffer through the discomfort, knowing that on the other side of that discomfort is growth. Third, face your fears head on. Whatever it is that scares you. Public speaking, starting a business, asking someone out on a date. Force yourself to do it. Fear is often a compass pointing towards the areas where we need to grow the most. I remember a time when I was terrified of public speaking. The thought of standing in front of a crowd made my palms sweat and my heart race. But I knew that if I wanted to make a bigger impact in the world, I had to overcome this fear. So I forced myself to suffer through the discomfort. I joined a public speaking club. I volunteered to give presentations whenever I could. And let me tell you, those first few speeches were painful. I stumbled over my words. I forgot what I wanted to say. I felt like a fool, but I kept at it. I kept forcing myself in those uncomfortable situations, and you know what? Over time, it got easier. The fear didn't disappear completely, but it became manageable. And more importantly, I grew. I became a better communicator. I became more confident. I became capable of influencing more people and making a bigger impact. That's the power of forcing yourself to suffer through your fears. It's not just about overcoming the fear itself. It's about who you become in the process. Fourth, embrace failure. Now, I know that sounds counterintuitive. We're taught from a young age to avoid failure at all costs. But here's the truth. Failure is one of the best teachers you'll ever have. Every failure is an opportunity to learn. Every setback is a chance to come back stronger. Every mistake is a lesson in disguise. But here's the thing. You've got to be willing to suffer through the pain of failure. You've got to be willing to pick yourself up, dust yourself off, and try again and again. I've failed more times than I can count. I've had business ventures that didn't work out. I've made investments that went south. I've said the wrong things and made poor decisions. But each of those failures taught me something. Each of those setbacks made me stronger. Each of those mistakes helped me grow. And I'll tell you this, I wouldn't trade those failures for anything, because without them, I wouldn't be who I am today. I wouldn't have the knowledge, the experience, the resilience that I have now. So don't shy away from failure. Force yourself to suffer through it. Embrace it as a necessary part of your journey to success. Fifth, surround yourself with people who will push you. It's been said that you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. So choose those people wisely. Seek out friends, mentors, and colleagues who will challenge you. People who will call you out when you're making excuses. People who will push you to be better. These relationships might not always be comfortable. In fact, they might often be uncomfortable. But that discomfort is a sign of growth. It's a sign that you're being pushed beyond your current limits. I remember when I first started out in business, I had a mentor who was tough as nails. He never let me get away with anything. If I made an excuse, he called me out on it. If I didn't meet a goal, he demanded to know why. If I complained about something being too hard, he told me to toughen up. At times it was frustrating. At times it was painful. But looking back, I realized that his tough love was exactly what I needed. He forced me to suffer through my own weaknesses and shortcomings. He pushed me to be better than I thought I could be. So seek out those relationships. Force yourself to suffer through the discomfort of being challenged and pushed. It's in that discomfort that you'll find your greatest growth. 6, practice delayed gratification. In today's world, we're used to getting things instantly. We want results now. We want success now. But real success, lasting success, doesn't work that way. It requires patience. It requires the ability to delay gratification. It requires the willingness to suffer now for a better future later. This means saying no to the things you want now, so you can say yes to the things you want most. It means skipping the party so you can work on your business. It means saving money instead of buying the latest gadget. It means putting in the hard work now, even when you can't see the results yet. Delayed gratification is a form of suffering. It's the suffering of denying yourself immediate pleasure for long-term gain. But it's a suffering that pays off in the long run. I've seen so many people give up on their dreams because they weren't willing to delay gratification. They wanted success now. And when it didn't come immediately, they quit. They weren't willing to suffer through the lean years, the years of hard work with little reward. But the people who are willing to delay gratification, who are willing to suffer now for a better future, those are the people who ultimately succeed. 7th, step out of your comfort zone regularly. Your comfort zone is a beautiful place, but nothing grows there. Growth happens when you step into the unknown, when you try new things, when you push your boundaries. Make it a habit to do something that scares you every day. Take on a project you're not sure you can handle. Learn a new skill that seems daunting. Travel to a place you've never been before. These experiences might be uncomfortable. They might be scary. They might make you feel like a beginner again. But that discomfort, that fear, that feeling of being a novice, that's where growth happens. I remember when I first started investing in the stock market, I had no idea what I was doing. I was scared of losing money. I was uncomfortable with the uncertainty, but I forced myself to do it anyway. I studied, I asked questions, I made mistakes and learned from them. And you know what? That experience changed my life. It opened up new opportunities. It gave me a new perspective on money and wealth. It helped me grow in ways I never expected. So, don't shy away from new experiences. Force yourself to suffer through the discomfort of being a beginner. Embrace the challenge of stepping into the unknown. 8, practice self-discipline. Self-discipline is the ability to make yourself do what you should do when you should do it, whether you feel like it or not. It's the foundation of success in every area of life. But here's the thing, self-discipline isn't easy. It's a form of suffering. It's the suffering of doing what's right instead of what's easy. It's the suffering of choosing long-term benefit over short-term pleasure. Developing self-discipline is like building a muscle. It hurts at first. It's uncomfortable. But the more you do it, the stronger you become. Start small. Force yourself to make your bed every morning, even when you don't feel like it. Force yourself to stick to a budget, even when you want to splurge. Force yourself to keep your commitments, even when you'd rather back out. These small acts of self-discipline might seem insignificant, but they add up. They shape your character. They build your willpower. They prepare you for the bigger challenges that life will throw your way. Ninth, learn to embrace discomfort. Most people spend their lives trying to avoid discomfort. They stay in jobs they hate because they're afraid of the discomfort of change. They stay in unfulfilling relationships because they're afraid of the discomfort of being alone. They don't pursue their dreams because they're afraid of the discomfort of failure. But here's the truth. Discomfort is the price of growth. It's the price of achievement. It's the price of living a life that's true to who you are and what you want. So instead of avoiding discomfort, learn to embrace it. See it as a sign that you're moving in the right direction. See it as evidence that you're pushing your boundaries and expanding your capabilities. When you feel uncomfortable, remind yourself that this feeling is temporary, but the growth you'll gain from pushing through it is permanent. I remember when I first started my business, there were many uncomfortable moments, negotiating deals, firing employees who weren't performing, making tough financial decisions. None of it was comfortable. But I forced myself to embrace that discomfort because I knew it was part of the process of building something great. 10th, and finally, develop a growth mindset. A growth mindset is the belief that your abilities and intelligence can be developed through effort, learning, and persistence. People with a fixed mindset believe their qualities are carved in stone. They avoid challenges, give up easily, see effort as fruitless, ignore useful negative feedback, and feel threatened by the success of others. But people with a growth mindset embrace challenges, persist in the face of setbacks, see effort as the path to mastery, learn from criticism, and find lessons and inspiration in the success of others. Developing a growth mindset means being willing to suffer through the pain of learning, the discomfort of not knowing, the frustration of making mistakes. But it also means opening yourself up to endless possibilities for growth and achievement. So, force yourself to adopt a growth mindset. When you face a challenge, instead of thinking, I can't do this, think I can't do this yet, but I can learn. When you make a mistake, instead of thinking I'm a failure, think, what can I learn from this? When you see someone else succeed, instead of feeling threatened, think, what can I learn from their success? Now, I've given you 10 strategies for forcing yourself to suffer in ways that lead to growth and success. But let me tell you, knowing these strategies is not enough. You've got to apply them. You've got to live them. You've got to make them a part of who you are. And let me warn you, it's not going to be easy. There will be days when you want to give up. There will be times when you question whether it's worth it. There will be moments when the suffering seems too much to bear. But in those moments, I want you to remember this. On the other side of suffering is growth. On the other side of discomfort is strength. On the other side of challenge is achievement. Remember, the pain of discipline weighs ounces, but the pain of regret weighs tons. The suffering you choose today will lead to the success you dream of tomorrow. Now, let me share with you a little secret. The most successful people in the world, the ones who achieve greatness, they don't just accept suffering. They seek it out. They understand that comfort is the enemy of progress. They know that staying in their comfort zone means staying the same, and staying the same means falling behind. So they constantly push themselves. They set bigger goals. They take on harder challenges. They force themselves into situations that make them uncomfortable. And as a result, they grow. They evolve. They become better versions of themselves. I want you to think about your own life for a moment. Think about the times when you've grown the most. Was it when everything was easy and comfortable? Or was it when you were facing challenges, overcoming obstacles, pushing through difficulties? I bet it was the latter, because that's how growth works. That's how success is achieved. That's how greatness is born. Now, I'm not saying you should make your life unnecessarily hard. I'm not advocating for pointless suffering. What I'm talking about is intentional, purposeful suffering, suffering with a goal in mind, suffering that leads to growth. Let me give you an example. Back in my day, I knew a young woman who wanted to become a successful entrepreneur. She had a comfortable job, a nice apartment, a good social life, but she wasn't fulfilled. She knew she was capable of more. So what did she do? She quit her job, moved back in with her parents to save money, and poured everything she had into starting her business. She worked 16-hour days, 7 days a week. She missed out on parties, vacations, and time with friends. She faced rejection after rejection as she tried to get her business off the ground. Was it comfortable? No. Was it easy? Absolutely not. She was suffering, but it was a suffering she chose, a suffering with a purpose. And you know what? After 2 years of struggle, her business took off. Today, she's running a multi-million-dollar company. She's creating jobs, making a difference in her community, and living a life she loves. But here's the interesting part. When I talked to her recently, she told me that those 2 years of struggle were the best years of her life. Not because they were easy or fun, but because they shaped her. They made her stronger, smarter, more resilient. They turned her into the person she needed to be to run a successful company.
That's the power of choosing to suffer. That's the magic that happens when you force yourself out of your comfort zone and into the arena of growth.
Now, I know some of you might be thinking, but what if I fail? What if I suffer and still don't achieve my goals?
Well, let me tell you something. Failure is not the opposite of success. It's part of success. Every failure is a lesson. Every setback is an opportunity to come back stronger.
Think about a bodybuilder. When they lift weights, they're essentially tearing their muscles. It's uncomfortable, it's painful, but what happens? The muscles grow back stronger. That's exactly how life works. The challenges you face, the setbacks you encounter, they're tearing you down so you can build yourself back up stronger. So don't be afraid of failure. Be afraid of not trying. Be afraid of staying in your comfort zone. Be afraid of living a life of what ifs and if onlys. Force yourself to suffer through the fear of failure. Force yourself to suffer through the uncertainty of trying something new. Force yourself to suffer through the discomfort of growth, because on the other side of that suffering is the life you've always dreamed of. Now let's talk about consistency. You see, forcing yourself to suffer isn't a one-time thing. It's not something you do once and then you're set for life. It's daily practice. It's a lifestyle. It's about making the choice every single day to do the hard things, to face your fears, to push your boundaries, to challenge yourself. It's about waking up every morning and asking yourself, what can I do today that will make me uncomfortable? What can I do today that will push me to grow? Maybe it's having that difficult conversation you've been avoiding. Maybe it's putting in an extra hour of work on your side project. Maybe it's pushing yourself to run an extra mile. Whatever it is, do it. Embrace the discomfort. Welcome the challenge. Because here's the thing. The more you force yourself to suffer, the stronger you become. The more resilient you become. The more capable you become. It's like building a muscle. The first time you lift weights, it's hard, it's painful. But if you keep at it day after day, week after week, month after month, what happens? The weights that once felt heavy start to feel light. The exercises that once left you gasping for breath become easy. The same thing happens when you consistently force yourself to suffer in pursuit of your goals. The challenges that once seemed insurmountable start to feel manageable. The fears that once paralyzed you start to feel less intimidating. The goals that once seemed impossible start to feel within reach. But it takes time. It takes patience. It takes persistence. And most of all, it takes a willingness to embrace the suffering, to push through the discomfort, to keep going even when every fiber of your being wants to quit. I remember when I first started in business, every day was a struggle. Every day brought new challenges, new problems to solve, new obstacles to overcome. There were days when I wanted to give up, days when the suffering seemed too much to bear. But I forced myself to keep going. I forced myself to face each new challenge head on. I forced myself to learn from every setback, to grow from every failure. And you know what? Over time, it got easier. Not because the challenges became smaller, but because I became bigger. I became stronger. I became more capable of handling whatever life threw my way. That's the beauty of forcing yourself to suffer. It doesn't just help you achieve your goals. It transforms you into someone capable of achieving even bigger goals. So I want you to make a commitment to yourself right now. Commit to forcing yourself to suffer every single day. Commit to doing something every day that pushes you out of your comfort zone. Commit to embracing the challenges, the setbacks, the failures as opportunities for growth. It won't be easy. There will be days when you want to give up. Days when the suffering seems too much to bear. But in those moments, I want you to remember why you started. Remember the dreams you're fighting for. Remember the person you're becoming. And most importantly, remember this. The suffering is temporary, but the growth is permanent. The discomfort will pass, but the strength you gain will last a lifetime. You see, life is not about finding yourself. It's about creating yourself, and creation is rarely a comfortable process. It's messy, it's challenging, it's often painful, but it's also beautiful. It's rewarding. It's the essence of what it means to be alive. So embrace the suffering. Welcome the challenges. Seek out the discomfort, because that's where growth happens. That's where dreams become reality. That's where ordinary people become extraordinary. Now, I want to address something important. When I talk about forcing yourself to suffer, I'm not talking about enduring abusive relationships, staying in toxic work environments, or neglecting your physical or mental health. That's not the kind of suffering that leads to growth. That's the kind of suffering that leads to destruction. The suffering I'm talking about is the kind that comes from pushing yourself to be better. It's the suffering that comes from stepping out of your comfort zone, from facing your fears, from doing the things you know you need to do but don't always want to do. It's the suffering of discipline, of delayed gratification, of perseverance in the face of obstacles. It's the suffering that makes you stronger, not the suffering that breaks you down. So be mindful of the kind of suffering you're choosing. Make sure it's aligned with your values, your goals, and your overall well-being. Because the right kind of suffering can transform your life, but the wrong kind can destroy it. Now let's talk about mindset. You see, forcing yourself to suffer is as much about your mindset as it is about your actions. It's about how you view challenges, how you approach difficulties, how you think about pain and discomfort. Most people see suffering as something to be avoided at all costs. They run from pain. They hide from discomfort. They do everything they can to stay in their comfort zone. But successful people, extraordinary people, they see suffering differently. They see it as a necessary part of growth. They see it as the price of admission for success. They see it as the fire that forges their character and shapes their destiny. So I want you to start changing your mindset. Instead of thinking I have to suffer, start thinking I get to suffer. Instead of seeing challenges as obstacles, start seeing them as opportunities. Instead of viewing pain as something to be avoided, start viewing it as a sign that you're growing. When you're facing a difficult task, instead of thinking this is too hard, think this is making me stronger. When you're feeling uncomfortable, instead of thinking I need to get out of this situation, think this discomfort is a sign that I'm growing. This shift in mindset doesn't make the suffering any less real. It doesn't make the challenges any less difficult, but it changes how you approach them. It changes how you experience them. And most importantly, it changes what you get out of them. Remember, the same fire that melts butter hardens steel. It's not about the intensity of the heat, but about how you respond to it. So choose to be steel. Choose to be hardened and strengthened by the fires of challenge and adversity. Now let's talk about fear. Fear is often what holds us back from forcing ourselves to suffer. Fear of failure, fear of the unknown, fear of discomfort, fear of what others might think. But here's the thing about fear. It's often a compass pointing towards the areas where we need to grow the most. The things we fear are often the things we need to do most urgently. So instead of running from your fears, I want you to run towards them. Force yourself to suffer through the discomfort of facing your fears head on. Are you afraid of public speaking? Force yourself to give a speech. Are you afraid of rejection? Force yourself to ask for that promotion, to ask that person out on a date, to pitch your idea to that investor. Yes, it will be uncomfortable. Yes, it will be scary. Yes, you might fail. but you might also succeed. And even if you don't, you'll grow. You'll become stronger. You'll become more resilient. And here's the secret about fear. It loses its power when you face it. The more you force yourself to do the things you fear, the less power those fears have over you. I remember when I first started speaking in public, I was terrified. My hands would shake, my voice would quiver, my mind would go blank. But I forced myself to do it anyway. I forced myself to suffer through the fear, the anxiety, the discomfort. And you know what? It got easier. Not immediately, not overnight, but gradually over time. The fear didn't disappear completely, but it became manageable. It became a source of energy rather than a paralyzing force. That's the power of forcing yourself to suffer through your fears. It doesn't just help you overcome those specific fears. It makes you more courageous in every area of your life. So I challenge you to make a list of your fears. Write down the things that scare you, the things you've been avoiding, the things that make you uncomfortable. And then, one by one, force yourself to face them. Force yourself to suffer through the discomfort of confronting your fears. It won't be easy. It won't be comfortable, but it will be worth it. Because on the other side of that fear, on the other side of that suffering, is the person you're meant to become. Now, as we wrap up, I wanted to leave you with this thought. Life is not about avoiding suffering. It's about choosing the right kind of suffering. The kind of suffering that leads to growth, to achievement, to fulfillment. So choose your suffering wisely. Choose to suffer through the pain of discipline rather than the pain of regret. Choose to suffer through the discomfort of growth rather than the despair of stagnation. Choose to suffer through the challenges of pursuing your dreams rather than the emptiness of a life unloved. Force yourself to suffer. Embrace the challenges. Welcome the discomfort. Seek out the opportunities for growth, because that's where greatness is born. That's where dreams become reality. That's where ordinary people become extraordinary. Remember, the path to success is not a comfortable one. It's not an easy one, but it's a worthwhile one, and you're strong enough to walk it. You're strong enough to endure the suffering, to push through the challenges, to overcome the obstacles. So go out there, force yourself to suffer, push your boundaries, face your fears, do the hard things, and watch as you transform into the person you've always dreamed of becoming. The world is waiting for you. The world needs you. The world needs the unique gifts that only you can offer. So don't hold back. Don't play small. Don't let fear or comfort or complacency hold you back. Force yourself to suffer. Force yourself to grow. Force yourself to become the best version of yourself. Because that's what you're here for. That's what life is all about.